Hello, welcome to News Central Television and our special Independence Anniversary broadcast here as we celebrate the nation of Senegal at 62. I'm Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia with the motto, one people, one goal, one faith. We celebrate Senegal at 62. It's been a wonderful 62 years in Senegal. And on this day, some 62 years back, they got their independence from France, and supposedly it wasn't necessarily a full independence because they had to share with the Sudan France, which made the Mali Federation. But later on in the year 1960, that was about in August 20, they actually made more independence and they cut out from the Mali Federation and became the Republic of Senegal. So to all Senegalese out there, we wish you a happy Independence Day. And on this special broadcast, we have different things to talk about, especially the politics, the governance, the security, the economy in Senegal. And of course, it promises to be a wonderful 2-hour package celebrating Senegal.
Yes, like Rita said, we have quite a lot in store for you. We'll be examining politics, governance and security, and we're not doing this alone. We have a team of expert resource people that will be joining us from Senegal to discuss all of this as we celebrate the nation of Senegal at 62. But before we introduce our guest, our team at News Central Television has brought together this package to look at the country of Senegal, to tell you a few things about this beautiful nation, the Republic of Senegal.
Since the 15th century, the West African region, today known as Senegal, has acted as a significant point of trade for European powers. In the 1600s, France already had control of Dakar, which was used primarily for slave trade. But this colonial power in particular had ambitions to extend its empire. Throughout the 1850s, France began to expand its territory by taking over local kingdoms. While different Senegalese factions resisted French occupation, little changed until the late 1950s. In 1959, Senegal and what was then known as French Sudan decided to join forces. These two regions merged and created the Mali Federation. As a result, the Mali Federation signed an agreement with France. Despite gaining power from France, organizing an internal administration became difficult. In 1960, the Mali Federation broke apart into two independent nations, Senegal and the Republic of Mali. The first president was poet and politician Léopold Sédar Senghor, who ruled until 1980. Briefly, the country joined the Gambia to create the Senegambia Confederation under the leadership of Abdou Diouf. This lasted until 1989. The first constitution of Senegal was promulgated in 1963 and revised through March 1998. A new constitution, approved by voters in January 2001 and since amended, proclaims fundamental human rights, respect for individual and collective property rights, political, trade union and religious freedom, and a democratic and secular state. Senegal is a multi-party republic. The 2001 constitution provides for a strongly centralized presidential regime. The head of state and government is the president, who is elected by direct universal adult suffrage and can be elected to 2 7-year terms. The Senegal has had only 4 presidents since independence. The current president is Macky Sall, who has been president of Senegal since April 2012. He was re-elected president in the first round voting in February 2019, Senegal's presidential election. Senegal has a stable democracy, being one of the African countries who never experienced a military coup, and the country's Independence Day is always well celebrated with festivals beginning on the evening of April the 3rd, when families go out, buy new clothes, visit friends, and buy flags. Every year, there is a parade in the capital Dakar, and the president normally gives a speech to the people of Senegal on this day. Happy Independence Day, Senegal.
So there you have it. Sure, you've learned a thing or two about the country called Senegal. It's time for us to introduce our special guest on this first part of the show, where we'll be looking at politics and governance and the economy. We have joining us live from Dakar, Senegal, Mayako Sa is a public policy analyst. Happy Independence Day to you, Mayako, and thanks for joining us on this special broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Mayako, looking at 62 years of nationhood and present-day Senegal, do you think the founding fathers will be proud of the nation they have today? And can you take us through that journey? And yes.
Well, yeah, they would be very proud of where Senegal is today, I reckon, because for one, we managed to somewhat keep the national fabric and the exercise in nation building that they undertook when we first became independent. We managed to keep this fairly intact, in the sense that today you still have the social regulators in Senegal, which are very influential, but although they are outside of the political realm, you have a very vibrant civil society in Senegal. You have freedom of the press, and you have the sense of national unity and the sense of one Senegal, as the current patriotic fervor brought about by the victory in the different matches that the national football team demonstrated. So yeah, so I reckon they would be very proud of where Senegal is today.
All right, Mayako, I must say I applaud Senegal because despite being surrounded by a lot of Sahel states, Mali, Guinea-Bissau and Guinea, it has not actually experienced any military coup. And I must say that I think if you're talking about security threats, it's quite limited. Now, let's take it forward a bit now to the time of Abdoulaye Wade, where we had a bit of protest during that period due to the fact that he actually wanted to review the constitution and seek a third term in office. Now, we had a protest there, which was Free Senegal. What were the impacts of that protest in Senegal?
Well, at the moment, it's probably too early to tell. I mean, we had an election, we had local elections in January, in which the party in power more or less lost a lot of very strategic seats. So this was the first indication maybe of where the country is headed following this Free Senegal movement. There is an upcoming, there are upcoming general elections in a few months, in July to be precise, and that will be another indication of where the country is at and what the people are actually thinking of the current government and the current president. So this will be another referendum on the current government. But yeah, you mentioned in your introduction the 2012 mini crisis that we experienced. It was as bad, if not worse, than the one that we experienced during the Free Senegal movement. And every now and then Senegal experiences these crises. And this is historically what has managed to consolidate Senegal's democracy. So I suspect this will be the case again, although I feel that we are in a very critical moment in Senegal, as to in the sense that we are facing generation conflict of generation. You have it's a country where 70% of the population is under 35. Yeah. So a whole generation of people were under 10 years old when we faced the last crisis in 2012. So the challenge for this government and for the Senegalese people in general this time around will be to meet the expectations of the young people and in general, the under 35 people in general, in terms of jobs, in terms of economic growth, in terms of freedom, because this will be what will make or break Senegal in the next few years, which will make Senegal either consolidate its status as one of the strongest democracies in Africa, or fall back into another kind of political system.
Mayako, it's instructive that on a day like this, the Senegal is celebrating its Independence Day. How much, because we do know that especially in France-Afrique countries, the mother country, France, has wielded a lot of experience, influence, I beg your pardon. How much has Senegal been able to win itself off directive and influence from Paris? How independent is Senegal today? And what's her relationship with its neighbors, especially in ECOWAS?
Well, Senegal is way more independent than a lot of forces within the country and without would have you believe. I mean, there's a lot more investment these days from countries like China, for example, other Asian countries. Senegal has built a lot of strong ties with the Gulf countries, with countries like Turkey. Even countries like Iran also have a lot of economic interests in Senegal. So the influence of France is largely overplayed in Senegal. Having said that, I mean, they still are a very strategic partner of Senegal. I mean, they have a say in a lot of the policies that are being implemented in Senegal. You have, and not just Senegal, actually, in the whole region. I mean, they still have a right of veto on decisions made by the West African Central Bank, for example, and other special privileges, I would say. So in that sense, they keep an influence on Senegal, but their role in the direction that Senegal takes is largely overplayed, in my opinion. Now, in terms of the relationship of Senegal with its neighbors, the ECOWAS countries, I mean, it's a growing relationship. Senegal has maintained strong diplomatic relations with its neighbors, with countries like Burkina Faso, for example, with countries like even Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire. Senegal has built strong relationships with these countries. You can see it, for example, in the crisis that in Gambia a few years ago. Senegal, Nigeria, and Ghana were instrumental in ousting Yahya from power. And and also you can see the speed at which decisions were made on Guinea, Mali, and even Burkina Faso in the latest ECOWAS discussions. And this is a strong indication of how strong the relationships between Senegal, which is a francophone powerhouse, along with Cote d'Ivoire, and the axis, Nigeria, Ghana axis in the Anglophone part of ECOWAS.
All right, while we're looking at independence of Senegal from its colonial past and, of course, its relationship with the neighboring countries, one of the most important things of independence is the fact that the country as a whole can be able to build up its political system. And starting from Leopold Senghor, we know that it was more of a one-party system which ruled for about 40 years. And then we had Abdoulaye Wade, we also had Abdou Diouf, and then now Macky Sall. But now we're seeing a situation where it seems the opposition parties in the country are not being able to express themselves. So how would you see the political system in Senegal, especially with the freedom of opposition parties being able to freely campaign and, of course, have their rights as opposition parties?
Well, I think it's not totally correct that the political parties are not allowed to campaign and not allowed to express their opinion. I mean, the main opposition leaders are often seen on TV criticizing the president, and being able to walk freely in the street the next day. They are able to mobilize their troops, and I don't mean it in a military sense, obviously, but their political supporters, they are able to rally them on a regular basis and organize huge meetings all across the country. They were able to, to win a lot of strategic seats in the previous election in a couple of months ago. So these are all indications that the opposition parties are not being as constrained as they would like us to believe. But at the same time, obviously, there are still, the system is not perfect. I mean, we have seen these crises over the years in the 1960s, in the 90s. You rightly mentioned it, that it was a one-party system back then. But even in the 1980s, in 1988, we faced a huge crisis in this country that almost brought the government down. In 93, likewise, and in 2012 as well. So these are all indications that these crises happen from now and then. They help to consolidate Senegal's democracy, but at the same time, I mean, you still have elements of patrimonialism in Senegal, which also, it also serves as a constraint on certain forces of the opposition, but not as much as they would like us to believe.
But what about the accusations that the ruling party is more likely to trying to clinch power in government? What about those accusations?
Well, I mean, obviously you have certain, as I said, there are neo-patrimonialist tendencies in at least some elements of it within the government. I mean, you also have a rule of law that, or accusations of the government using the rule of law to its own benefits, and this has been crystallized by the jailing of a couple of very powerful opposition candidates, and well, these are real things as well. So the opposition party has a point, but it's not as much as they would like us to believe. I mean, it's the reality is more in the middle. That yes, there are some rule by law rather than rule of law, as Francis Fukuyama termed it. But at the same time, this is not as much as they would like us to believe, because the opposition parties and the main oppositions to the government are still allowed to campaign and still allowed to win elections in very strategic seats, especially strategic seats for the sitting government. So, in a sense, the reality is in the middle, as I
okay. Now,
as I said.
Mayoko, we understand, looking at the history of Africa's post-independence, a lot of African countries were created through artificial borders. In the Berlin Conference, no African was consulted, and as a result of that, following independence, a lot of states, nation states, these new nation states had civil wars and a lot of civil disobedience and violence, which we still live with. The fault lines are still there. So my question to you is this, Mayoko, how is it that there are no profound ethnic and religious crisis in Senegal, apart from that little bit in Casamance? And what is it about Senegalese that unites them as a people? And what lessons can the rest of Africa learn?
Well, first of all, there is, in Senegal, there is a lingua franca called the Wolof. It's a language that's spoken all through Senegal, and that serves as a uniter and a vector of discussions between different ethnic groups. So this is the first reason why, in my opinion, there's relative ethnic and religious harmony. The other one is that 95%, some figures would even say 97.5% of the people of Senegal are from are Muslims. So that also creates this sense of Senegal being, although being a secular country, has a huge Muslim majority and population that helps consolidate this sentiment of unity. And of course, you also have a lot of social regulators, which are the religious leaders from the various Muslim brotherhoods, as well as the church that always comes together, especially in times of crises, to unite, first of all, between themselves and unite the country. And this is one major reason why major crises were averted in the past, and why whenever there was a crisis as well, the crisis was stared down by the government and civil society in general.
All right, let's look at the issue of governance now, especially with this present administration, Macky Sall, who started in 2012 and was re-elected in 2019. Now, the Sall administration reactivated the Court of Repression of Illicit Enrichment in 2019. So how would you assess the level of safeguards of official corruption, how the government has been able to curb corruption in the country?
Well, it started well. I mean, obviously, this was the first step in tackling corruption in Senegal. The opposition parties obviously accused the government of using it for its own purposes, which has obviously some basis to it, in the sense that this was used first in the first 3-4 years or this court was used in the first 3-4 years of the Sall administration to go after members of the previous administration that were accused of corruption. Some of them were jailed, others were released. So that has to be pointed out as well. And on the other side, the government is also this also works to maybe not in the penal sense, but the current government was also has also gone after its people a couple of times, in the sense that it went. For example, the president's brother was forced to resign from his role as the director general of a big agency in Senegal. So, in a sense, that this court has worked fairly well in the first few years, but in the last few years hasn't really been as active as it could have been.
Okay, now Mayoko, we've seen a new fervor in Senegal, especially when it comes to football. It's a big football nation. Senegal just qualified for the World Cup, and they're currently reigning African champions. As we inch towards an election year, how is this? What's the mood like in Senegal, and how are they using this newly found? You also have a sparkling, brand new stadium. How are they using this sport to foster unity in the country, and what's the mood like currently in Senegal?
Well, the mood is very optimistic. I mean, people are even talking about winning the World Cup in 2022, which is a far cry from the quote-unquote divorce between the national team and the people of Senegal that we witnessed a few years ago. So, so the mood is very optimistic and very happy. People are very happy at the moment. Having said that, in terms of building unity, I mean, this has created a very strong patriotic fervor in the country, and has also united a lot of the people that were fighting on, or at least arguing on political grounds. And now you have, I mean, one one event that crystallized this newfound unity was when the football team came back from the heroics of the African Nations Cup. They were mainly hosted at the airport by the president, along with every single opposition parties that were invited, and this was seen as a very strong unity signal sent by the president and sent by the opposition as well, who could have refused to attend this event, but still attended it.
Okay, while we're looking at unity, you said earlier on about 70% of the population is less than 35 years, which means that Senegal has a very robust youthful population. What would you say is the participation in politics? Do we have more youths participating in politics? I mean, aside from the protests we saw in #Free Senegal, do we have more youths coming into the politics arena?
Well, of course, yes. The Free Senegal movement was a movement mainly spearheaded by the youth, and you have a lot of youth, at least if not being involved in politics, but at least being involved in public life and being involved within the public institutions. I mean, Senegal was, I think, the first West African nation to create a youth entrepreneurship delegation general. So it was an institution whose goal was to foster opportunities for the youth in Senegal. And you have a lot of young people who got opportunities from this instrument, and a lot of them are still looking to get opportunities within this instrument and looking to participate into the political the institutional landscape of Senegal through this instrument and through other instruments like the National Agency for Youth Employment and other such agencies that have been created to foster opportunities for the youth. So yeah, that's basically how the youth are getting involved in public life in Senegal.
All right, but do you feel the issue of unemployment, because another statistic says that one of the major problems in Senegal is the issue of unemployment, especially for the youths who are below 35 years. Do you feel that has in any way affected the economy of Senegal and even the youth participation?
Well, for me, when you talk about employment policies or job creation policies, it's almost redundant to talk about these policies targeted at the youth, because in a sense, a country that has 70% of people under 35, and even if you want to take it further, the people under 45 are almost like 80 to 90% of the population. When you talk about a major job creation, a major GDP booster, has to involve the youth, and these people, I mean, the young people cannot be shunned from such a process. So yeah, so in every aspect of the economic growth that Senegal has witnessed in the last 6 to 7 years, we have to mention that Senegal, before the COVID crisis, had a growth rate of over 6% yearly, and this was mainly, this was at least in a very strong way, fostered by a lot of youth participation and youth enthusiasm. Having said that, obviously, whether things can be better, of course they can be better. Of course, there can be more young people in decision-making positions. For example, there could be more young people at the National Assembly. And these are all elements of that needs to be improved in the next few years. But to say that the youth have not been involved in, or at least not been instrumental in the job opportunities that have been created in the past 10 years is not totally correct.
But more can definitely be done. Okay, you're watching our special Independence Day broadcast here on New Central Television, and we've started discussion on the economy. But our team was kind enough to put up this package on the Senegalese economy. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Mayor Korsar. Please stay with us.
Senegal's economic freedom score is 60.0, according to the Heritage Foundation, an American conservative think group largely focused on public policy. This places Senegal's economy 88th out of 177 countries in the 2022 index. Senegal is placed 8th out of 47 nations in sub-Saharan Africa, with a score that is higher than the regional and global norms. Senegal's GDP stood at $24.9 billion in 2020. In current terms, its per capita gross national income, it has $1,430 in 2020, which makes it a lower middle-income country. The economy grew by more than 60% per year between 2014 and 2018. Real GDP growth stood at 0.8% in 2020, down from 4.4% in 2019 and 6.2% in 2018.
Donc c'est un appel qui s'adresse au monde entier, à l'ensemble des partenaires bilatéraux qui doivent travailler avec l'Afrique, mais avec le monde entier, puisqu'il n'y a pas que l'Afrique d'ailleurs qui subit. Vous avez d'autres pays en développement qui n'ont pas les mécanismes comme nous et qui ont besoin d'être soutenus dans cette phase critique, et c'est pourquoi nous plaidons pour la fin quand même de la guerre en Ukraine, et il faut tout faire pour arrêter ce conflit afin que les conséquences soient quand même maîtrisées sur le continent, mais sur le monde entier.
The coronavirus epidemic has had a severe impact on the Senegal's economy, delaying services such as tourism and transportation, as well as exports. Containment measures have been introduced by the government, as well as economic and social resilience program. Nonetheless, a lack of fiscal buffers and safety nets, a shaky healthcare system, and a vast informal economy pose obstacles. Economic recovery will likely be gradual. Reforms envisaged under the emerging Senegal plan need to be deepened by growth to resume its pre-pandemic trajectory. Services remain the main contributor to GDP, and the primary sector, agriculture, being the most dynamic engine of growth. Oil and gas extraction have been delayed due to the health crisis and are not expected to contribute to revenues and exports before 2035. The future is on the path of being better than the past, all things being equal, and no further external disruption.
Okay, there you have it, an overview of Senegal's economy. Now, Mayor Kor, Senegal has been regarded as the exception. We said that earlier, in a region of instability. Senegal has a history of stability. Why hasn't this stability translated to economic progress for a majority of its citizens?
Well, I think it's mainly due to a lack of state capacity. I think in the last, we have undergone the neoliberal revolution that was started by Ronald Reagan and Maggie Thatcher, whereby the government was labeled as the problem. This has transpired in what we commonly called as the Washington Consensus, and this has translated into the systematic rolling back of the states, most states in Africa anyway, but the Senegalese state was not an exception to that rule, and that has created an environment where there was strong economic growth, but the state was ill-equipped to fully capture that growth and redistribute it to make sure the growth trickles down to the poorest strata of the population, and that has not translated, obviously, in poverty reduction.
Is the government doing steps to address that? It's been quite some time now. What's the current situation?
The current situation is that the state has been completely lacking in capacity, and now we saw that during the COVID crisis. A lot of measures and good measures were taken by the government, but it was difficult for this for public administration to implement those measures so that a lot of the poorest strata of the Senegalese society benefited from those measures, and this was also a reason why we saw the Free Senegal and other crises that were brewing in the past couple of years, and to be frank, have been brewing for the past however many few years.
All right, Michael, now, so looking at the economy, I know that Senegal is blessed with natural resources, iron, gas, gold, and all of that. But still, just as you rightly said, the economy is still struggling. And one of the major revenues is mining and agriculture. What has the government done so far to improve the agricultural and mining sector to meet with technological standards?
Well, in the past few years, what has happened was the government has put in place the Emerging Senegal Plan. The Emerging Senegal Plan has three major components. The first component is the transformation of Senegalese economy through and agriculture, as well as the development of agribusiness, is a huge component of that transformation of the economy. A second component is the development of human capital, and especially in education or vocational training, to train people to go back to sectors like mining, like agriculture, like oil and gas, since we have newfound resources in Senegal in oil and gas as well that we're hoping to exploit in the next few years. And the third component is the governance component, building obviously a strong public administration, sort of building back the state initiative that will sort of avoid the problem that I mentioned earlier. Okay. So in that sense, the Emerging Senegal Plan has developed a lot of instruments for sectors like mining, like agriculture, and other sectors to fully benefit from technology transfer from the international countries, as well as from all the benefits that it can. It created, for example, like a special economic zone in a city like near Dakar. Yeah. They are building what they call agropoles, which are sort of agricultural special economic zones The first one is in the south of Senegal that will focus on cashew nuts as well as mango transformation. They have they're looking at another agropole, to build another agropole. I think the works on building that agropole will start in sometime this year, and it's in the central zone where there's the groundnut basin, and there's also in the north where you have the rice and onion basin as well. So they are building a lot of initiatives to develop sectors like agriculture and mining, not to mention as well the reforms that are accompanying these initiatives. For example, there is the PPP law. Senegal was the first country in West Africa to have its own PPP law, which is being amended actually at the moment. They have greatly improved the business environment. I mean, I know that it's no longer in existence, the doing business ranking, but before it was top, Senegal went from the 178th country in the world to 123rd country in the world. And you can see that in a lot of other reforms, especially in reforms to foster more private sector involvement and to foster as well more education and training for young people to be able to access that part of the economy. So so these are in a nutshell some of the initiatives that the government has taken to help or to foster development in some of these sectors, agriculture and mining, for example.
Thanks, Mayor Ko. And it's nice to know that the Senegalese economy is quite diversified, and I must say that maybe it's a blessing that Senegal is just only exploring its oil sector. Now, my question is this. As part of the Emerging Senegal Plan, the oil sector developing the oil and working towards extraction is there. What steps can Senegal take as a country to avoid the mistakes of countries like Nigeria, those that have fallen under the resource curse, or when you start selling crude oil? Because it's just a matter of time. Yes.
Well, I think the first part is again, like going back to the state capacity building. It's important to keep improving state capacity building. There is a program at the moment called the PAMA, the State Modernization Program, that is built to develop a strong state, a state that will have the capacity to have strong fiscal policies, to be able to have the resources to redistribute as well some of the generated wealth. That's the first step, in my opinion. And the second step, which is already underway, is having a strong local content policies. And there are also already a law that's been voted and other initiatives afoot to make it to make sure Senegal, and when I say Senegal, I mean the people and the local population, as well as the local private sector, manage to benefit fully from the newfound resources in oil and gas, as well as the other resources that Senegal has to offer.
All right, Michael, while you were listing out the economic recovery plans that Senegal government and, of course, Senegal as a whole wishes to go through, we know that in 2020, the national debt for Senegal was amounting to about $16.75 US, which is about 68.8 8% of the GDP of Senegal. But with all this economy recovery plan, do you feel Senegal will be able to cover up its national debt? And how in the future can African countries, because we see most countries running in debt, so even with the amount of revenue that they have, it's all going into debt recovery. So how can African countries kind of like reduce the amount of debt that they have, and how will Senegal actually recover from the national debt?
Well, it's a major issue in the Senegalese economy. I mean, it's an issue that gives countless government officials sleepless nights. So it is mainly a problem that's international. I mean, a lot of it is and it will be worse before it gets better, in my opinion, because the current international landscape will not allow us to reduce that debt quickly enough. Having said that, the policies that I was talking about before in terms of the private sector development and ensuring that the private sector involvement becomes greater than it was during the first phase of the emerging Senegal plan implementation will be critical, because this is how Senegal will wean itself away from the public debt trap, which is starting to become consequential.
Now, Mayor Kor, still looking at the economy of Senegal. Senegal is one of the countries that have ratified the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Your president is the chairperson of the African Union. In what ways is Senegal positioned to take advantage of this, one big market in the whole of Africa?
Well, firstly, there is geographical location. Senegal is the closest point of contact to the Americas, as well as to Europe. So it is the gateway of entry to about. If I look at the ECOWAS region, to about 300 million people, but if we look at Africa as a whole, it's 1.3 billion people. Although obviously Senegal is not the only gateway to Africa. Don't get me wrong on that. But it definitely is to West Africa. So in that sense, that's the first benefit that Senegal has. The second one is political stability. Obviously, you mentioned it a few times. Senegal is the only country in West Africa to have never experienced a coup, and the political stability and the relatively good governance that we've discussed earlier are also two elements that will incentivize businesses from more developed countries as well as emerging countries to come and set their headquarters in Senegal. So that's the second point, and the third point is obviously all the reforms that Senegal has been undertaking, which especially the business-friendly reforms that will allow Senegal to be a very competitive country when it comes to attracting foreign direct investment in this region, along with all the initiatives of special economic zones that have been built and other economic initiatives that are going on all across the country. So these are all elements that I think will position Senegal as an ideal country, at least in West Africa, to benefit from the African Special Economic Zones.
All right, now subdivided into 14 regions, that is Senegal, how would you assess the level of rural development in Senegal? Because we see most countries, I know that we have the urban and the rural areas, but sometimes we call for at least a level of equality in development. So how would you assess the level of rural development in Senegal?
Well, I mean, this is a major issue, a major challenge that the government will have to tackle in the next few years. I mean, like most developing nations, Senegal is heavily urbanized, with 97% or close to that of the population being in the informal sector, and that the government is trying to incentivize to go back to rural areas to develop initiatives in agriculture, in mining, and in other industries. But it's a long-term project, and the government will have to be to keep having these initiatives or these labor-intensive initiatives, such as the agropoles that I was talking about before, and the whole mining hub projects that they are trying to develop in the east of Senegal, and other such projects. This is the only way to entice a huge part of the population that are living in poverty in urban areas to go back to rural areas and enjoy a relative comfortable life. So this is the main issue, the main challenge for the government, and the other one will be, and they have started tackling it, will be to build infrastructures. They have they are building a lot of urban and intra-city mobility infrastructures, and this will have to be ramped up in the next few years if Senegal is to fully develop its rural areas.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaur. And I believe this is where we wrap things up on the economy of Senegal. We still have a lot to talk about in terms of tourism and security. So but before we go for that, before we come back to that, we have prepared something. When you talk about notable Senegalese, it's not just Sadio Mane.
No, it's not just Akon, I mean.
Yeah, and Akon. So we'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Mayor Kaur. We did appreciate your insight and knowledge on the subject, and happy Independence Day to you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. So talking about notable Senegalese, we know they have literary giants like Cheikh Anta Diop and Youssou N'Dour. Yes,
let's not talk too much about this. Let's have this very special clip on notable personalities. So if you feel that you know Senegal, let's see some of the very important people, literally musicians, footballers, academicians coming all the way from Senegal. Still the special broadcast celebrating Senegal's independence at 62. Stay tuned.